And welcome back, everyone, to the Steve Finnegan Show. And welcome to my good friend, Jay. How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, Steve. I'm doing great. Good to be with you again.
Yes. I had something today that gave me a lump in my throat coming from your neck of the woods up there in Northwest Arkansas about Zachary Holly and what he did to that poor little girl, Jersey Bridgman, the 6-year-old that was murdered up there. Kind of got me in the heart that this kid suffered so badly, not only at the hands of this guy, but her own father and stepmother, too. But the good news was the Supreme Court of Arkansas denied his parole or his request for a new trial or sentencing for what he did. So anyway, folks, I said that hit me, and it just really bothered me, and I lost my train of thought. What I was actually going to do, Jay, I was going to ask the audience, and they can text this in while you and I talk, was the President of the United States at the time of the adoption of the Constitution, ladies and gentlemen, you either had to be a citizen at that time or a natural-born citizen. I explained about McCain and how if you're born outside of the U.S., as long as it's to U.S., at least one U.S. parent, you're still a citizen. So I want to throw this out there, given all this problems with Congress. Do you think that the Constitution should be amended and say that all Congress members, both House representatives and senators, should be native-born Americans? Just text that in to the American Leak Detection text in line 501-403-5276. Thank you for that indulgence, Jay. I appreciate that. So,
yeah, absolutely. We've been heads down in fiscal session, so nice to hear the news from the rest of the world while we've been keeping track of what's happening at the state capitol.
Yes, and let's begin with that. Now, there are several resolutions that were filed for because this is a fiscal session and only bills related to appropriations are supposed to be brought up, and there's a special procedure, of course, if they can convince enough of their colleagues to go along with this. So let's start off with the LEARNS Act and what happened with them.
Yeah, so like you said, during the fiscal session, most of the work is around just updating appropriations, the state budget for the year. And because this is not an appropriation bill, we actually did have a number of general bills filed, close to a dozen. And this action took place yesterday in the House Rules Committee. So this resolution was filed by Representative Jim Wooten, and Senator Brian King joined him to explain it. Essentially, what it would do, it would have taken a sledgehammer to the state's Education Freedom Account program. And just as a reminder for listeners, this is the first full year that every kid in Arkansas has education freedom. It's a landmark achievement that Arkansas is being recognized for around the country. And while we're still getting started, this bill was filed that would have just really decimated the program. I mean, it would have imposed all these sorts of standardized testing mandates on students. And it actually put in place a requirement to say if you didn't obtain a certain test score, you would get kicked out of the program completely. Now, Steve, I've got a question for you. You're usually asking me the question.
Yes.
But how many public schools in Arkansas do you think would kick a kid out of public school if they didn't meet a certain test score, or would lose funding for that student if they didn't meet a certain test score?
Let me think about that for a second. None.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just an absurd double standard here, and nobody would ever advocate for that, nor should they. I mean, the goal of education is to help children proceed academically and make progress. So really ridiculous. It would have kicked out any kid from the program if they previously attended a private school of any kind. I mean, this would have hurt thousands of kids, especially those with disabilities and learning differences that are using this program today around the state. So it was really a radical bill, but it came up yesterday in committee, and the authors actually purported to be in favor of school choice. Mm-hmm. They just wanted to make some changes. Well, this is much more than changes. This would have completely gutted the program, and thankfully for the thousands of families that depend on this program, it did not move forward. The committee did not even make a motion to bring this bill up to pass. So yesterday was a big win for education freedom and for all the families that depend on this program.
Well, I am glad to hear that. And folks, the fact of the matter is Jim Wooten is a Republican, and of course, so is Brian King. And I wonder sometimes if this is because Senator King has some bad feelings with the governor with their feud over Arkansas Alcatraz up there in Franklin County.
It's hard to say. All we can do is judge the policy by its merits. And it was really rich hearing the explanation of the bill. The authors claimed that they were concerned about costs, and they said, we've got to do this because people on the streets are hurting. Well, I don't think kicking out thousands of low-income kids who are using an education freedom program is the best way to help people who are hurting. I mean, it was totally tone deaf. There clearly wasn't support for it on the committee, which is why you didn't even see a motion for it. But the reality is we've said this a number of times before, Steve. Opportunity Arkansas exists to work on solving generational problems. And one of the biggest generational problems we've had is kids who are stuck in failing schools.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, after decades of conservatives pushing for school choice, pushing to give parents options, we're finally here. Like, this is the first full year that every kid in Arkansas has it. And already we're seeing people who are concerned about costs and wanting to make tweaks and changes. This program is wildly successful. And now that we have it, we have to stand firm and defend this because families are using it and it's successful, and we should be proud of it.
And I am proud of this very much. I went to public school for a couple of years, but the rest of the time my parents chose to send myself and my two siblings to Catholic school. When I was going through this, it was when they were attacking. You couldn't. They removed prayer from school and everything. And, the Catholic elementary school I went to, every morning we started with an Our Father and a pledge allegiance to the flag. And I think that the opportunity for children to have that same opportunity that I did. And my dad said, I remember, we were talking about that, and he said, Mom and I still had to pay the full tax bill for sending, for the public schools, which I think that's probably a huge part of every homeowner or business in the country, that property taxes go to the school budget. And he said, then your mother and I sacrificed to send you guys to school because we wanted you to get the best education possible.
Absolutely. And, it's funny you mentioned that. We hear from Arkansans every day. You look at our Facebook page just today, we've got folks commenting saying, we support this program because for the first time, we're actually able to use our tax dollars that we've been sending to fund schools that we weren't even using. And just as a reminder, public schools are the best option for lots of kids and will continue to be the best option for a lot of kids in the future. But the point of education freedom is that kids need to have an option for when that public school is not working. And a very good school could be not a great school for certain kids for different reasons. Mm-hmm. So this program is succeeding, and it was a win yesterday for families to see this shot down. But we've got to stay vigilant because, unfortunately, we're going to see more of these attacks in the future. But the good news is the people of Arkansas are speaking up. They see what is working with education freedom, and they're here to defend it.
And I can assure you, as long as God gives me breath in these two lungs of mine, and I am on this radio show, I will defend the LEARNS Act as well. And, this is no slight against public school teachers because I know that there are some very fine public school teachers that care deeply for their kids, but the ones that are failing are just wanting to get by as little as possible. I said, let's just say for argument's sake that kids use this and they go to either a parochial school or another type of private school. Well, as those people exercise their rights under this law, those schools are going to need good teachers, and good teachers will be hired. So that's just a personal feeling on my account.
Absolutely. A phrase that gets used a lot, but it really applies here, is that a rising tide lifts all boats.
Amen.
When parents have better options, everybody gets better, and we're all better off for it.
Okay, Jay. Well, as you know, we have to pause because we're helping people in Northwest Arkansas as well as Central Arkansas get home for work. So before we go to traffic, ladies and gentlemen, our moment has arrived here in Arkansas with DraftKings Sportsbook. The official sports betting partner of Southland Casino is now officially live in our state. Now you can make every matchup even more exciting with same-game parlays, money lines, player props, and more, all from your phone. It's safe, secure, and very easy to use. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code KARN. New Arkansas customers bet $5 and you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly with that code KARN. Please gamble responsibly. Call or text 1-800-522-4700. Must be 21 plus to play in Arkansas. Eligibility and restrictions do apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, please see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. All righty, folks, we're going to check in on the traffic, and when I come back, Jay and I will get into some property taxes as well as the fiscal session. And welcome back, everyone, to the Steve Finnegan Show on KARN, KFAY, and online, all across the fruited plain. And I have as my guest, as we do every Thursday, Jay Robertson from Opportunity, Arkansas. Jay, welcome back.
Thanks, Steve. Great as always to be with you.
Yes. Now, you heard me ask the question of the day, and let me throw that again for those that are just joining us. Folks, do you think that our senators and congressmen or congresswomen in the House of Representatives should all be native-born American citizens rather than naturalized, given the problems like we've had with certain members of Congress that aren't originally from this country? And overwhelmingly, Jay, everybody is saying 100% on that one. But I want to share this with you because I don't know if you ever heard our dear friend Lynn call in. She'll call in sometimes twice a week, but she always calls me for First Amendment Fridays. And she and her mother, Flo, are listening. And Mama Flo said about parents being upset with the way that they're trying to indoctrinate children in these public schools today also has a lot of reasons why parents are exercising this. And I have to agree, Mama Flo nailed it.
That's right. And, a lot of times, especially when you hear folks talk about education in state government or at the state capitol, it gets boiled down to these conversations about test scores and achievement. But ultimately, a lot of it comes down to, are your kids getting taught in a way that aligns with your values? And that's a really basic thing. And if the answer is no, you need another option. And so that's a great point. And it is one of the reasons that education freedom is so important. We've got to have a protection against that to ensure that folks can get an education that aligns with their values. They're not getting indoctrinated, and the parents feel confident in knowing what their kids are getting taught every day.
And, I actually got one of the teachers that was listening online from the Lone Star State said that there are some of them over there that are trying to rewrite history and say that the Alamo was not really a Catholic mission, but it was a mosque. You can't make this up, Jay.
I would say nothing surprises me, but that's a new one. I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah, and I looked it up online, and there were several articles on it too. These leftists are doing. George Orwell wrote the blueprint, what they would try to do in erasing and rewriting history, and he nailed it back in 1948 when he wrote the book 1984. And I just had another teacher text in and ask, said, I got a question for Jay and Steve. And the teacher, she said, or he, I don't know, they didn't identify which, just a number, so I can't tell if it was a man or a woman texting in with this question. But they said, can either one of you two explain to me why teachers in certain cities want to arm themselves to protect their students against ICE, but they don't want to arm themselves to protect their students against a potential school shooter? And my goodness, Jay, I don't have an answer for that one. I do, but...
No, I mean, yeah. I'll leave that one to you.
Other than, say, liberal lunatic teacher, and probably one of these teachers that the other was talking about, there are teachers that just want to teach students. And but, that one caught me off guard. It's kind of like... but it is a great point. Teachers talking about arming themselves to fight against ICE, but not against school shooters. That one does take the cake for today, for sure. But before we run out of time, my friend, I explained this to you on the phone when we chatted. Had lots of text messages and a couple callers. One caller in particular moved over here from the Chattanooga area, and he talked about how Tennessee and Texas were the two states mentioned that don't have income taxes, but their property taxes are through the roof. Both of them said. And then the one gentleman that called in mentioned, for property taxes, that's much higher, too, than we have here in Arkansas.
Yeah, so the good news that we're seeing in the fiscal session, there was, the only bill that advanced yesterday that was not an appropriation bill actually increases the homestead tax credit. So it would move it from $600 to $675. So that would be effectively $75 off the property tax bill if that were passed into law. It was interesting that there were about a dozen or so non-appropriation bills, and this is the only one we saw passed. Now, it still has to get a 2/3 vote from the Senate. It was approved by the House yesterday, and then the actual bill itself would have to advance. But that is something that looks like it's going to happen during the fiscal session. That would increase that credit for people who are claiming homestead to get some measure of property tax relief from this fiscal session.
Yes, and I know there's got to be something we can do. Especially for our seasoned citizens that have been paying property taxes their entire adult lives, and they need to do something where we can make it easier once you get on a fixed income once you're retired, Social Security and a pension perhaps, or if you have some 401k investments. But I definitely think we need to address that, especially for our seniors.
Yeah, at Opportunity Arkansas, our position is that the state government does too much and takes too much across the board when it comes to taxes. And so we're focused on any way we can lower taxes. We're prioritizing the income tax because we can get to zero there. And then we're also seeing action on property tax and reducing taxes across the board. So we're hopeful to see more. Hope to be back next week and give you an update on where things stand then.
We will. Thank you for your update now, Jay. Okay, folks, we'll be back after the news.